In 5 years, what's the keynote topic at HMPS?
Fractional employment, fractional leadership.
Boy, I hope we don't have to repeat 2025 again, like a retrospective. Boy, that year sucked, didn't it?
It's still not as bad as 2020.
Yeah.
Or is it right? 2020 higher on the terrible meter.
New choices, new players, new models of care. You know consumer first healthcare is everywhere. For us to build the future, to see what's new, we gotta look at the world from a different point of view. Consumer innovation ain't going away. I say it's here to stay. Today it leads the way. We gotta drop the silos. We're all the same team. Experience, business, tech, and marketing. So join us now. Join the revolution. Consumer first health is the evolution. Status quo or like status no. Yeah, this is the healthcare rap. Yo, come on, let's go.
Hey, welcome back to the leading podcast about consumer-centered healthcare. What if healthcare was actually centered around what consumers need and expect? We're talking with leaders who are making it happen one experience at a time. I'm Jared Johnson, and this is episode 432. Today, we have the Flava of the week about Current Health being reacquired by its original co-founder. What do we know about Best Buy Health's restructuring? And is this an isolated incident, or will reacquisition of digital health players gain traction? I'll talk about that. Then in one of the most candid conversations we've ever had on this show, Chris Pace and Aaron Watkins joined me to discuss careers and leadership at the intersection of healthcare, marketing, and technology. As the three of us recently found ourselves in career transitions at the same time, we talk stages of grief, how to evaluate new opportunities, encouraging and discouraging aspects of career transitions, the unique formula for leadership in our field, and what we think the future holds. It's time for an extra dose of awesomeness, y'all. Are you ready? Let's go.
Flava of the week.
It's safe to say that Current Health's latest move wasn't on anyone's bingo card, and it's leaving us wondering if they won't be the only ones heading in this surprising new direction. On June 25th, just days ago, co-founder and former CEO Christopher McGee announced that he has reacquired the company from Best Buy. The company's statement read as follows: "As we part ways, we do so with gratitude. During the last 3.5 years, Current Health has become the leading platform for hospital at home, oncology at home, including cell and gene therapies, and a number of other care at home use cases. More than 1/3 of all patients in the U.S. who've had a hospital at home experience have been cared for through the Current Health platform. We've helped more than 70,000 patients receive the health they need from home. We're proud of the work we've done so far and look forward to the next phase of this journey. We're also meeting this new beginning with excitement. It means a return to scrappiness and that startup spirit, rolling up our sleeves and moving quickly with patient safety and customer experience at the center." On this transition, Chris said, "I came back to build Current Health into a globally significant company. We have so much to do and the story is not finished. The future of healthcare is in the home and the community, and we have a role to play in that transformation." Not many details have emerged yet. Before this week, we did know that Best Buy had begun restructuring its health division. They had a restructuring charge of $475 million in the fourth quarter of fiscal 2025 that was tied to lower long-term financial projections for their health division. On their earnings call in May, executives said that they're making efforts to drive more efficiency and that their care at home initiatives with industry partners had taken longer to develop than expected. They pointed to the slower adoption of hospital at home services at scale due to uncertainty surrounding the federal hospital at home waiver, as well as ongoing financial struggles among the company's healthcare partners. What's the consumer lens here? It's going to be increasingly tricky for consumer-centered innovations to thrive for the time being, and therefore it's going to be even harder for consumers to understand their options and trust new ways of seeking care. More broadly speaking, the era of big lumbering healthcare giants swallowing startups for the sake of innovation might be cooling off. We're entering a new phase where nimbleness wins, and the companies that actually get patients, not just profits, are the ones to watch. So will others follow? Will reacquisitions gain traction? And if so, who's next? I really wish that I could predict this crazy industry, but I can say fairly confidently that this definitely feels like a gutsy move in a year where almost nothing seems truly shocking anymore. Let's pay extra attention to other digital health players that could return to scrappiness for the sake of patients and consumers. That's another way that we'll build the healthcare of tomorrow, and that's the Flava of the week. Shed is revolutionizing health and wellness by making wellness available to everyone. Through personalized nutrition, high-quality supplements, and science-backed wellness strategies, Shed empowers individuals to take control of their health and live longer, healthier lives. Not sure where to start? Try NAD+, the ultimate coenzyme that supports cells, DNA repair, and anti-aging. Or maybe you'll like LDN for managing chronic pain, autoimmune diseases, and metabolic health challenges. Visit Try Shed to start your wellness journey today. That's tryshed.com.
The flow.
Okay, we don't get the chance to do things like this very often, so let's make the most of it. Let's tag team this. Let's have some real discussions here. Sitting here with Aaron Watkins and Chris Pace. I mean, how often does this happen? Aaron, first, I welcome you on. How have you been?
I've been pretty good, man. In transition, enjoying it a lot, doing a lot of kind of daily virtual networking and getting a fresh perspective on things. That's been pretty enjoyable, actually.
I think we'll get into more of that, but that's great to hear. Chris, what about yourself? How have you been keeping yourself busy?
Similar to Aaron, I've been making the most of the time of fun employment summer. So we have some travel coming up. I might have wrote a little mini book. We can talk a little bit about that later. There's more to come on that one. And I've been playing a lot of golf. I think I've played 10 rounds in the last, in about a month. So feels good. I'm still rusty, but working on it.
You caught the end of the weather that makes that reasonable to be outside in Phoenix. So
I've got a test of intestinal fortitude and I guess external fortitude tomorrow. I'm playing at 1 p.m. The high is only going to be 105. Jared knows in Phoenix, 105, and June's a relief. But that one's going to be tough. UV 11 for the kids out there listening. It's going to be a UV 11 day.
I couldn't have even told you what that meant in my early 20s, but apparently everyone knows.
Regular vernacular. The kids, they march, they literally, I can predict when the kids will be in the pool by looking at my UV index. I'm going to pull it up and so everybody knows what we're talking about. So this is a chart of today's UV and we are about to hit UV 11. So I guarantee that pool will be occupied in the next 30 minutes.
This one goes to 11.
It's not supposed to hit more than the red area on that, but now it's a little
purple.
pink.
That's what color my skin turns when I go out in the sun. So
right on. Maybe I can set the stage here a little bit because we just thought it'd be good to get together and kind of share we've had some shared experiences, but let me see if I got my math here right. So Chris, did I count right? You spent 7 years at Banner Health?
I did.
Is that right? 7 years. And then Aaron, was it 16 at Hopkins?
17 actually. Yeah.
17.
Yeah, it's a lot.
17 at Hopkins. So the common theme is those tenures have all ended. My most recent tenure was a year. And so the common thread here is those tenures have ended. And that naturally leads to just a lot of thoughts and experiences ourselves. I was just mentioning, so the three of us happen to be there at HMPS and getting a lot of the same questions because we all share that news around the same time. And that's not the whole discussion here today because there are a lot of aspects of careers and leadership that I want to ask you two about. But this was the fact. This was just a few weeks ago, and we were all getting a lot of those same questions. And there are a lot of others who I don't want to leave out of this discussion who are in the exact same stage right now, who are thinking through the same things, asking the same questions. And usually the first thing that goes through your mind is, how do I evaluate what's next? How do I decide that? I don't know if it's unique to healthcare about how many opportunities there can be to go into a consulting role or a fractional role in addition to considering full-time opportunities. It opens the doors. So cool, new possibilities. There are so many different niches that you can build for yourself and set up and kind of make a name for yourself. And so I think that's good. At the same time, it does create more things to evaluate. So I guess that'd be my first question is, we'll keep this kind of nebulous because I know we're all in different stages of literally evaluating what those opportunities are. So these may have been things that you've gone through and have kind of completed this thought process, or you're right in the middle of it right now. But what does that approach look like when you're talking about how to evaluate what's next and how to even just see what makes sense for me? What am I comfortable with? Where do you go with that? Like, first off, when you realize a transition's happening, whether it's on your own terms or not, where do you start?
I could jump in since I'm a recent entrant into this space. So I think the first thing that really helped me get clarity and perspective was giving myself space to process what had happened. So in the transition of exiting Banner Health, you go through a lot of, I don't want to make it more than it is, but I mean, there are grief stages that go through that, because especially spending a long time in an organization and having done some really fun things, worked with great people and done meaningful work pre-pandemic and during pandemic and post-pandemic. So there's like 3 stages of that period of time that you have to really go through and process. And I think depending on the type of person you are, you either want to jump at what's next and move fast and just kind of dismiss what just happened, or you're going to dwell on this thing that is changing and go through the anger and sadness and all that stuff. Or you can just kind of look at it pragmatically and say, look, nothing can take away from the experience I had. That is forever. Those relationships are there and are forever. And we move through this. And then you start to identify what was great about that. What would I change or do differently? And then as you start evaluating, look at opportunities through the lens of the nice to haves or the want to haves. Aim there, and then stay away from the things that might have been a challenge or might be things you don't want to repeat. And I think having time to process that is really important, and don't just be reactionary. I think you have a opportunity to really be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree to that. I mean, for me, the day of heaviest grief was the day after, and quite a number of people who were affected. And a lot of people were reaching out to me, but it wasn't just to find, people weren't sure who all was impacted. And I kind of found myself in a position where I realized I'm somehow one of the people who knows the most, I'm in between a lot of people communicating. And so that was a really hard day to just be processing everybody affected. And many were people I worked really closely with. Many were people that I've known for a really long time. That was an incredibly sad day, and one that I just spent a few days recovering from that experience in particular. And then in 17 years in one place, I've done a lot of things. There's a lot of things I'm proud of. I've evolved a lot over that time period. Like Chris says, you really have to take a breath. And I had to really self-evaluate what's most important to me in the next role. In part, it's what do I feel strongest as a contributor, but also just what kind of environment do I want? What kind of leadership? What kind of team? I realized more than anything, it is the people and the kind of common charge that excites me and that I needed to really think carefully about. And I will say it ended up taking me even just a few months to kind of orient to what kinds of things I wanted to look at and why. And it was hard during that time. I'm lucky we're all part of the HMPS community, HCIC community, right? So we have so many people reaching out and people are sending me opportunities. But I did find early on, I wasn't able to sift through those as effectively or follow up on them as effectively. I needed to create some distance for myself. And then once I got my head in the right space, and I did just looking through what color is your parachute, actually doing some of those exercises. And I joined a cohort of people who are in transition, and we were talking through some of those things. And those things helped me to reset in the way that I truly needed to.
You just mentioned a cohort of people. What's it like to have people still checking up on you? People to kind of say, hey, we've been through this. The flavor's different for each of us a little bit, but we can find that common ground. What's that been like?
I mean, one, it's fantastic. I've never felt more a part of the community than I do right now, just because so many people have reached out, and just the everything, the words of encouragement, the everything of it just makes a huge difference. You get the little comments from people who never took the time maybe to comment on something, or maybe you didn't even, I've met a lot of people I never knew and they reached out to me and they're like, oh, well, you did this thing that one time, or I know that you're really great at this. And you get all these little compliments from people that you never knew you had that impact, or you never knew they saw that. And it's just great.
Yeah, I think the other thing it showed me, Jared, is that the healthcare industry is a special place. And it makes sense when you unpack it because, I mean, healthcare practitioners, generally speaking, need to be empathetic. You have to give more than you get in terms of like healing people, or from a marketing lens, you have to think about how others are going to react without your own preconceived biases to try to bring them into the services that you offer. So by almost like by DNA, the community that Aaron had mentioned is so giving. And it's one of those things where if you practice like the mindset of being generous with your time and helping others, because I mean, I feel like all of us are that way just naturally, because I've known the two of you for a while now. You're always willing to give your time. And I think that's just something that we do. But when you're in that moment of vulnerability and others do that for you, man, it's humbling. It's overwhelming. And it also is reaffirming that this is the right place to be, not only from a career standpoint, but just from a people standpoint. Surround yourself with the people that you want to be surrounded by. And I've felt that for the last month for sure.
It's amazing. Aaron, when you made your announcement on LinkedIn, if you don't mind, the very first line you said was, navigating change isn't easy, but community makes all the difference. And that sums up what you just shared there. The interesting thing to me is that community isn't always the exact people who you'd expect. We all do have our inner circles, kind of those first level, those A-level friends who are going to reach out. And even if they don't, like you can reach out to them. And then there's that B level, like that second level. I find those are the ones who kind of fill those gaps during the times that, at least for me, it was the least expected, like most pleasant surprise. I'm not even making this up. Just a minute ago, as we were on this recording, I just got a note from one of those I would consider, who would just like, I haven't heard from just now. They were just like, hey, just checking in, just hope, you're going to find something, whatever. That just happened like just now, real time. I mean, but those are the kinds of things. It wasn't from somebody I would have expected. And that's that level of community. But what do you have to put into the community to get that out of it? For those who don't feel like, or just wonder, like, where is that community? Like, maybe I don't feel it as strongly. What's the difference there? What can somebody do to build that community even more?
One thing I've tried to do from the start, and in some ways it comes out of just insecurities or feeling like, anytime I accomplish something, I think we probably all share this too. It's like, I accomplished this, but I meant to do this. Throughout my time speaking, I always tried to take time to, all right, here's the accomplishments, but to really focus on the struggle, the challenges, right? The obstacles we overcame. And I know you guys both do that as well. It's that kind of vulnerability, I think, that builds the connections. And it's also that kind of vulnerability that in this period, when on a personal, professional level, I feel very vulnerable, I've really had to tap into and just put those things out there because it's part of the process as well.
There's a little bit of like that self-doubt element that sits inside that as time goes on and you're able to accomplish more and people start to see you as something that little voice inside your head may not see. That to me is the fuel to always say yes to things. And I don't see anything as a waste of time when it comes to like talking to somebody else. I see it as an opportunity to learn. And I know not everybody's like that. And I think that's why people are afraid to reach out to folks that want to learn more about something they've done, that they've talked about at a conference or what have you. And 1,000%, I will say yes. I'll make the time because I know that they're probably hearing no. And I don't want to squash the fire in somebody that is trying to build and learn. And they look up to people like us now as older gentlemen in the space. And so I think be generous with your time and make it worthwhile. You don't have to just assume that because somebody's reaching out, it's just going to be like, oh, it's another conversation I have to have. You can turn that into something powerful if you just invest the time. And I feel like every connection has value in some way.
Is that generational at all? So the stereotypes, right, are that Gen Xers have no problem just putting ourselves out there and realizing like people, you might make mistakes, and that like Gen Z just won't do as much, that they're more hesitant to try things in front of people because they know they've lived with comments online about everything that everyone does, and you don't want to say the wrong thing because you know it's going to live out there a little longer. It's a stereotype that's not necessarily true or our lived experience. Do you see that at all? Or is that,
I think it's a little bit of it's more of a maturity thing than anything. I feel like, I remember what things were like when I was in my 20s, and I had this constant fear of failure. We're all like of that generation where we had to like drink from the garden hose, and like we were just kicked out of the house till it got dark and all that stuff. But yeah.
No helmets.
Yeah. Tackle football with no protective equipment.
No nets on your trampoline.
There's also there was not, generally speaking, like a praise layer either. So like when something was called out as a positive, it's like, it felt awkward. And like my parents were awesome and super supportive. And I feel very lucky for the parents I have. But I know like a lot of kids just didn't have parents at all involved in anything in their life. And so my thing was always like, I didn't want to disappoint my parents because they were so different than my friends' parents. But so that was kind of what motivated me. But like, I think today, the 20 to 30-year-olds are a little bit more clear on what they expect their life to be. And I think they've also had, what is it called, gentle parenting in some regards, like of people our age or older millennials that have raised them that are maybe overwhelming them with praise. So they're used to being told that they're great, but then they're also socially awkward because the pandemic kind of ripped apart their formative years when they were really trying to start their careers, or maybe the tail end of college or high school. And so it's more of a communication thing for Gen Z. They just don't know how to do it. So they just like fire off messages online versus like if you were at a networking event, I think you'd struggle getting somebody to speak up. And maybe that's what you were talking about, Jared, is like they're hesitant because they don't know how to interact in person versus for us, it's like we had to learn that way through survival almost.
There's two things it makes me think about, and it isn't maybe answering your question, but my time as a leader, like I still have a card right here over my desk that says praise good work often. Like, cause I realized at one stage in my career, like I'm not recognizing people enough, or I'm trying to do it in maybe a showy way, a trophy kind of way. And that's episodic, but it's a lot more effective to do it day to day and as things happen and in front of the group, where it happened, whether it's an individual or a team effort. And so I think that just aligns with what Chris was saying. It's like, I feel like it is generational that I wasn't used to that. Like you had to win the championship to get the trophy. And I realized I needed to shift to something that reached more people on my team or in the organization. And the other thing then, and maybe this is taking us in a different direction, but maybe a place you're going to head anyway, like talking about Gen Z and how the workplace is different for them. And now we look at AI and just how that's impacted entry-level roles in the last few months and things. Like I wonder about the workplace of the future and how we will help guide the next generation and also how we're going to participate and stay vital in that.
Well, all right. Let me try to connect two things here because I do want to go there. I do want to talk through workplace of the future, how it's transitioning right before our eyes. One aspect of what Chris was mentioning of, like maybe it's whether it's getting in front of people, in front of a group setting and being comfortable speaking about either something that they have accomplished or something they have a question about. There's an aspect of that. There's an ongoing topic that I speak with Alan Shoebridge a lot. It's just about those whose voices are needed out there in the industry, either on social media or on a podcast, a blog, still needing their voice as creating content for themselves, just sharing their thoughts, sharing their voice about whatever a topic may be, because we still tend to hear a lot from the same people all the time in the industry. So there haven't been as many of it's not necessarily straight line Gen Z, but there haven't been as many younger professionals sharing their voices, publishing content in any form, video, audio, written, or whatever. And Alan's always wanted to encourage more of those in a rising generation and a rising leadership role in their career to put their opinions out there. And maybe that's where I was thinking that a little bit, that stereotype of those conversations I've had with Alan, because I agree, we haven't seen as many compared to maybe 10 or 15 years ago of people who are just willing to put content out there. Hey, here's my point of view on this. We do still see it. And maybe it's just the formats are different too. And again, maybe it's just because those were more public forums, right? Like people still post a lot, but a lot of comments are not as public now, privacy settings or whatever on those forums. So I don't know if it's a channel thing either, but I think that's where I was going with that. So maybe we can parlay that into this thought of this topic of leadership and the future of healthcare marketing. Right. So we are seeing a lot of transition happening right before our eyes. We are literally seeing people ask every day, is something coming for my job? I have typically just been able to resist any thought like that and just have even a little bit of apathy towards, is something coming to take my job? I've always thought, well, I don't think I've ever done the same job for more than a couple of years. Like the types of things you do every day, the title might be the same, but the job is different. We've been in this industry more than, 12 months, your job has changed. So there's a comfort level aspect to that of whether people are comfortable with that and want that, or whether you just kind of have to ride with the tide, like ride with the wave that's coming and saying, I guess I have to learn this. But what are your thoughts about where the workforce is headed in our industry, and what kind of help us sort out the hype from what really is happening, like our ChatGPT or whatever is Claude? Like, are these tools coming for our jobs? It just kind of seems like a basic question of no, not really, but what's the but here? Like, what should we be thinking about it? Like, how should we be looking at it? Any thoughts on that?
What I'm observing is that the velocity of change is accelerating. And it's not so much, at least yet, timestamp June 12th or whatever date we're going to say today is June of 2025. The work is the work, right? For healthcare marketers, your aim is probably always going to be trying to get people to engage with their health, try to get them to move from shopping for health services to accessing health services, and then making that process as easy as possible. Like, generally speaking, that's probably not going to change. I think what will change and what is changing is the where and the how people are investigating these things, and the expectations to which they have before frustration will point them in a different direction. And so I'm always a firm believer that easy ends up winning in the long run. And so, if you can make access easier, and however that is defined, whether it's appointments now, appointments near you, or just the process to which you get those appointments is on your own terms, is one side of the coin. But I think the other side of the coin is people are burned out, generally speaking, and they're working harder to get the same output. And maybe AI tools in the workplace are going to right-size the ship a little bit so people aren't having to work as hard to get the output that is needed to continue to innovate over time.
Jared, I'll circle back to a point you made. I mean, I think digital roles are constantly evolving. And I think just by our nature, if you're doing digital work, chances are you may not be looking at everything totally holistically, but you're looking at things from several different angles, and you're probably iterating your work on a regular basis. And I'm talking about when you're early in your career all the way through. And I think that's your perspective on things and how they connect together only increases in digital, right? Like, because that's the whole game. You're connected to the operations, to the consumer experience. You're getting all the inputs. And so there's just always going to be new opportunities created and people able to evolve. Building on what Chris said, and like the easiest way to make those connections, like all of that, I still think at every end of everything, there's a person. there's a human to human connection that you're making through digital tool sets. And if you maintain that focus, that you can think creatively and problem solve and make that human to human connection. So that's just kind of a core principle of people in our field. And man, the burnout is real. The burnout is real. You see it at all levels of the org. And as I get like talking with the community over the last few months, I've talked with people at all levels of health systems. I've talked to people at agencies, lots of different settings. And the burnout is real. Like you hear it almost across the board. I do think that AI, people who are really tapped in and leveraging it really well, I mean, it's amazing what they can output and what they can create. I think to me, I do view AI as the robots coming to replace us all. I always have a little cynical view of all technology. And also, I'm not someone who says computers made our lives easier. Computers have made our lives more complex. And each of us as individuals can do so many more things in the workplace, in our personal lives. But that also means there's increased demands for us to do those things. And I think AI is just like that. But AI by its nature, at least as I understand it, building on LLMs, it's about the most likely output, the most common output. And so people in digital roles, analytic roles, whatever role you are in the organization, the people that will thrive are the people that are able to work with AI, but to see the gaps, the mistakes, the opportunities for differentiation. And again, the opportunities to connect humans to humans ultimately. Like, I think those are the roles that will thrive.
It's not an easy answer or even thought process for me of, is my life better or worse with the tech we have now? I'm pretty sure my life was simpler and I was pretty happy before the iPhone came out, before I was on social media.
Razor was cool. You had like Minesweeper on it, or
I had a texting phone that was pretty special. At the same time, I probably wouldn't know either of you.
Right.
We just probably wouldn't be connected. And I just wouldn't even know of a greater community. And I would just assume like the one point of view I had on everything, it made sense. And everyone agreed to that. And so it's complex in my mind too, of where am I? And I think it's worth continuing to examine that question on a basic human level, not even just in our industry. I'm so glad you brought that up, both of you. In 5 years, what's the keynote topic at HMPS?
Fractional employment, fractional leadership. That's got to be in there somewhere, right? There's going to be a lot more people operating in that capacity.
Boy, I hope we don't have to repeat 2025 again. Maybe that's it. Like a retrospective. Boy, that year sucked, didn't it?
It's still not as bad as 2020.
Yeah.
Or is it, right? I put 2020 higher on the terrible meter.
Yeah, 2020 was pretty terrible. I don't know if we're going in these 5-year patterns, maybe 2030 is going to be pretty terrible too.
I do think that is a thing, though. Things that were once generational or whatever, like everything continues to accelerate and the need for change accelerates. And not that it's politics, but look, we keep having one-term presidents. I don't think that's just a reflection of the current crop. Like, people want change faster. Things are happening faster. And yeah, that's something we all got to get used to.
Yeah, I see that. Chris, tell us a little bit more about that novel, that whole book thing you mentioned.
Yeah, man.
I had set a goal back in April when I was moving on from Banner. I said, hey, I should try writing a book and just like go through the process through the self-publish route. So I looked into Kindle Direct Publishing on Amazon and looked at like what was required to go through that process. And it was pretty straightforward. And I had two thoughts in my mind of what I was going to aim at. The first was some kind of business nonfiction reflection on a career in healthcare. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm bored thinking about that. I don't want to bore others with that nonsense. So I went the other direction and I said, well, what would make sense from sort of my vantage point in creating a story that was kind of close to home and a little bit future telling, but also kind of goes down that Black Mirror dystopian road. And so it just kind of came to me. So I wrote, it's called The Wellness Trap. It's on Amazon now. It's a very short story, quick read, but it's going to be 3 parts. And it centers around a female lead who is in the tech space and joins a tech like wearables company and things go south pretty quickly. So like I said, there's no... One thing that I can't stand reading is like a heavy character building. So you might get less than you bargained for as far as like wanting to know more about Claire Mercer or Jax or any of the main characters. But you get to the climax and the conclusion pretty quick. So, and there's going to be 2 more stories that follow up that kind of fill the gap. But it's kind of like in that The Firm, Black Mirror, a little bit of Severance kind of vibe too. So if you like that, and if you're Netflix and want to adapt this to screen, hit me up.
So is it a coincidence? I just got my Oura Ring yesterday. Do I need to send that back?
Well, as long as they don't create a function called Pulselet that starts tracking and driving your mood, not tracking your mood, but actually influencing your mood. That's where you know it's going south.
All right, I'll keep my eye out for sure. So far, so good. But we'll look at that later.
I'm sitting here feeling like I've accomplished nothing because he's putting out books. You're putting out podcasts. That's impressive.
How about we put out? Well, we were just talking about like a band. Like let's figure that out.
Yeah, I got to learn guitar, but yeah, we should do like a string trio.
I can do piano or drums, and I can semi-rap. So can't sing.
I can do some guitar. 3 chords and the truth kind of thing.
Nice.
Final thoughts? Anything we haven't covered?
Sure there are, but we sure had fun.
We really did.
Yeah, it was a hell of a ride. And I think kind of circling back to the point you were making about how technologies deepen connections. I mean, I'm just grateful to know 2 of you. Jared, you and I met through work, PCH Dignity, OG days. And then Aaron was just like a Salesforce connection that we got to have a conversation. I don't know when that was, a year or 2 ago. And these are forever connections, man. So like, I'm just so grateful to have chats like this, learn from each of you and get to hang out and do fun stuff every once in a while at the conferences. So life's good, man. There's only so many summers left for us to play around. So might as well make the most of it.
Hear, hear.
Perfect place to end. I have nothing to add to that. Super glad we got to do this, and I'm really excited to share this with the world. I know people are going to resonate with a lot of things we shared, and let's keep these conversations going. That's the whole point of all of this. So guys, thanks so much for joining me today.
Right on.
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks, Jared.